Hey guys, what's going on? This is episode 3 of Touchline, in which we discuss soccer for Torn by Sports. And so let's dive into Real Salt Lake real fast. As you can see from the latest match, we was able to score a goal and actually score a goal not off of a set piece or off of a PK or anything like that. We actually scored a goal in the field of play, which is great for us. We're having our offensive woes with Saborio being out. And so it's great to see that Plata is out there pushing forward and, being that offensive figure that we need. It's great for the team like that because Plata is now getting a lot of respect that he kind of deserves. Plata is really young, and so he has the chance to go forward with this team and actually be a star on this team. I know the team doesn't like to center around, I'm the star, this guy's a star, or something like that. That's just not the team's mentality when it comes to this. The team's mentality is the entire team is the star. Plata is going to be a huge factor inside this. And I love Plata. I love his game. Looking back on that trade for him, that was a huge steal for us. And, he is now deserves to be that guy that starts up top of Saborio. He is the man that has proven himself. He's not going to turn around and get, MVP honors or something like that. He's not going to be considered an MVP. But he deserves to be in discussion as one of the top players inside the league. I mean, he's only 21 years old. He was a player that was traded from Toronto to us. That Toronto didn't feel that he had a whole lot of talent, and because of that, RSL took him on, and now Plata's he's blowing up. I mean, so far throughout the year, he's played in 14 games, started 13 of them, and has scored 8 goals in it. He's doubled his goal-scoring effort from last year. He only played in 29 games, started 19 of them, but he has more goals. He doesn't have as many assists, and he's taking, he hasn't taken as many shots, but his shots on goals is tied with what it was last year. So even though he's not taking as many shots, his shots are hitting, the goal. They're getting within that area to where they can be goal. I mean, it's all we turned around and we traded him for was a second-round pick in the 2015 MLS draft, and this was in 2013 that we made that. And so, I mean, it was a low risk, high reward if it panned out. This has turned into a huge reward for us. And so going forward, we know Saborio is the man, and now we know we have a number 2 next to him in Plata. Kind of like when we had Fabian Espindola. You knew Espindola was going to start up top with Sabo, and they were going to play well together. We finally have that guy now in Plata who can play well with him. And another great thing is if we sub off Plata late inside a game, we bring on a Garcia who's another speed guy like Plata and can play disruptive and challenge defenses. And so it's nice to have that trade-off. What's also great about Plata is he came into the league and many thought he would play a midfield role. Going forward, RSL might consider if they can find another striker or 2 that can push for playing time up top and want to play with Saborio, or even, to replace Saborio, and we have 1 or 2 guys that can do that. Maybe RSL looks at it and goes, okay, maybe Luis Gil is not the guy that takes over the top of the diamond for when Javier Morales is done. Maybe that's Plata, because Plata's proven to be a goal scorer and proven that he can control an offense. So I like what we can see out of Plata. I still think Gil is the best option to play the top of the diamond, and moving forward, they might turn around and decide to get rid of the diamond, which I like the diamond. I like what it is. I know it's kind of that hipster theme right now because everybody's in love with the diamond. Everybody wants to play the diamond, but I really, really love the diamond because of what it does for Real Salt Lake. Real Salt Lake has built this team around that formation. They went out and got they turned around and traded a second-round pick for Plata, a guy that Toronto didn't feel fit their scheme. probably didn't have a role inside MLS, and they turned around and they fit him into the system because they looked at it and knew he's a guy that's going to play in this system and thrive in this system. So RSL, huge kudos to them for getting Plata. We're still going to have some offensive troubles because Plata's probably can't carry the team every night. They need other guys that can come forward and take care of that. And so we still need to find another guy to play alongside Plata. And so I hope that we're able to find somebody like that soon. I don't think we go out and make a trade for him. I think that what we need to do is develop from within. We got Garcia, who's, you know, he needs to make that next step. It's going to be tough for him to make that next step. After that, you have Devin Sandoval. I really love Devin Sandoval and his game. I think that he's not as talented as Saborio when it comes to terms of, you know, getting the ball and getting quick shots off and being the offensive playmaker like that. But what he lacks in that, he makes up for in being, he has that soccer IQ, he's tough, he's physical. You know, a lot of strikers don't like to play physical. Devin Sandoval will get in there and play physical with you just a lot like Saborio will. And so, you know, maybe having that guy up top that can muscle around defenders open up things for Plata. And so maybe that's going forward, that's your future at the top of in the formation is a Plata and a Devin Sandoval, which I would love to see. I think those two play really well together. I mean, I haven't looked at any stats or anything like that, but just from the eye test looking at it going, you know, I really like what these two do together. In the past game, though, as it's become common with MLS, the referee kind of affected the outcome. So what happened was there was a challenge late in the game, in the 70th minute, where Nat Borchers had a slide tackle, very basic, and you know, from the replays I've watched 3 or 4 different camera angles, is whenever you go to do a slide tackle, you got to be very, very important that you keep your studs of your cleats down. If they're showing it and the ref sees it, 9 times out of 10 it's an automatic card. A lot of the times refs don't tolerate it, and so they'll give you a red card. From what I saw, cleats are down, so he's not being dangerous. He hits ball first, and he kicks ball out of play in the process of sliding through the attacking player, trips over him. I would call that clean. It's clean because he hit ball first. He didn't go in with the intentions to attack the other player. He went in with the intentions of sliding through and getting the ball. So he's playing the ball, cleats are down. It's a horrible call. Luckily for us, or maybe unluckily, because you know, you have to consider from one aspect of, hey, now they get the PK, they convert on the PK, they're up 1-0. Plata comes down 10 minutes later, scores a goal. You can turn around and look at it and be like, okay, the soccer gods, you know, smiled favorably on us because we walked away with a point when the ref could have screwed us over. You can also look at it and be like, you know, because we were scored on, our offense kind of came alive because now they're forced to play higher. They're forced to be more attacking, which is great and everything like that. But you could also look at it and be like, what if that goal, that PK isn't awarded, and Plata still comes down and scores that goal 10 minutes later? Did the ref really just take 2 points away from us? And looking at how close everything is right now in the West, 2 points could be essentially what puts us in the playoffs or keeps us out of the playoffs. Frankly, there's a few matches you can look at throughout the season when you can be like, you know what, we should be the 3 seed, or we shouldn't be in the playoffs, or we should be in the playoffs. And there's 3 or 4 games you can look at and be like, that's the reason why we're not in the playoffs. Now you can turn around and look at it and go, is this game that one reason? Originally, I had the plan to talk about the expansion draft. That's what I told you guys I was going to talk about last week, and I had something prepared for it and everything like that. And then, before I just started putting everything together for the show, a few people on Twitter was talking about FIFA and the World Cup bidding process and Qatar and how corrupt FIFA kind of is. And so what I wanted to do is break it down and explain it to you guys. This is what FIFA is and what the big huge controversy behind it all is. So to start with, FIFA is the International Federation of Association. Well, essentially, it is the governing body over all of soccer. And when I say all of soccer, I mean soccer like Real Salt Lake, beach soccer, and then what's called futsal, which is essentially indoor soccer. I mean, if you've never seen an indoor soccer game, get into it. It's awesome to watch. Usually it's 5-on-5, smaller field. When I was in high school, we actually started a league of it. We played more than 5-on-5 though. It was more like 7-on-7, and it was just fun. We'd play inside on a basketball court, and all you sit there and do is kick the ball off of walls, and just it's a fun sport to watch. It's fun to play. Anyways, so FIFA governs over all these, and they're responsible for the World Cup. FIFA is a non-profit organization. They claim to be, but let's be honest. I mean, for the past 110 years, it makes money. It's got like in 2013, FIFA has revenues over $1.3 billion US for a net profit of $72 million, and had cash reserves over $1.4 billion. But they're nonprofit. Just remember that. And so and the big thing with FIFA is their leadership is always being linked to corruption and bribery. There was claims that when the current president, Sepp Blatter, was elected, that it was rigged. That in 2018, that the bids were rigged there. And what they had to do is they ask all the teams, who. So they'll take the 2022, for example, and what they turn around and do and they say is, okay, who would like to host it? And you have to put in a bid saying, these are our stadiums we can offer. This is, actually, we'll just go ahead and go through the United States one. So United States states in 2007 that they would like to host the 2018 World Cup, and then about 2 years later they decide what they're going to put in for 2018 and 2022. So they put together this committee. The committee is going through, looking at everything, trying to figure out. And after the committee gets together and they decide and look at who's all put in for 2018, they feel they have a better shot in 2022, so they withdraw their 2018 bid. So in April 2009, a couple months later, they send off to FIFA 70 stadiums in 50 different cities as possible venues that can host the tournament. And then they send out the letters to the stadiums with 58 coming back saying, we'll host a World Cup game if selected. From there, that list of 58 gets trimmed down to 45. Later, it's taken down to 32, and then it's finally put down into 18 cities with 21 stadiums. The stadiums that, well, the cities that were used were Atlanta, Baltimore, Boston, Dallas, LA, Seattle, Washington, Philadelphia. Big venues. What does all these have in common? They hold American football stadiums. None of them will hold less than 65,000 people. The average capacity is 77,000 people. 7 of those stadiums that were put on there can hold 80,000 people at least. When you figure out the average ticket sales for one of these, it's, you know, I was hearing reports of it going $150 a game. And so you figure if you can sell out, you know, on average a $77,000 seat stadium at $150 a ticket, you're looking at $11 million. And then you consider all the games they're playing, it's gonna, you know, it's gonna sell. Now, when you consider it, though, I mean, and the sad part about it all is we have soccer-specific stadiums. Real Salt Lake is, you know, the Rio Tinto is a soccer-specific stadium. It is built for soccer. Okay. Out of all the MLS teams that are, you know, we have playing now, there is only 5 stadiums that do not host, that aren't soccer-specific stadiums. So you got to consider, out of all the teams that are in MLS, only 5 have the opportunity, from the criteria alone already, to host a World Cup game. Technically, it's only 4 because one of the teams is Vancouver. So, as it sits right now, you can look at it and be, you know, CenturyLink Field, which is the Seattle Sounders, was actually one of them that was selected. And then there's Buckshaw Stadium. It's a it's a college field. They're not going to use it. So you see how it's all about, you know, pretty much money is the huge issue that's going to be going on there. As for the other 2, RFK Stadium, which hosts DC United in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was part of the original bid, but they would use FedEx Field instead of the RFK Stadium, which is a stadium that they share. The United States soccer team uses it a lot, but it's not used a whole lot other outside of DC United. Pretty much uses it. They're the only team that plays there, but it's not built specifically for soccer. It was originally built for football and for baseball. The other one is Gillette Stadium for the New England Revolution. That is the stadium that was considered, and you know, only because it can hold 74,000. And so that's the teams that are essentially going to be hosting World Cup games. And so when they were putting the bid together, you know, they went in through and looked at it and was like, okay, this is what we want to use and stuff like that. And then they have, and it's easy because they can turn around and say, you know, we don't have to spend any money to sell to like build new stadiums or anything like that. So it's kind of a FIFA thinks they're there to help, so they can turn around, look at the look at the World Cup bid and say, it doesn't help your economy because you're not building new stadiums or you're not putting that money back into it, which is the funny thing about it all, because FIFA's going to come in and they're going to take money, essentially. Say the United States does get a World Cup bid, and they decide the opening game is going to be played in, I'm pulling one at random, the Rose Bowl. They will not call it the Rose Bowl, though. What they'll turn around and do is they will call it Coca-Cola Bowl or something like that, because the stadiums will be renamed for that month, bearing the name of FIFA sponsors. These are sponsors that are paying FIFA to be the official soft drink, or be the official chip, or be the official cracker, or whatever. So Coca-Cola turns around and gives FIFA that money, and for a month the Rose Bowl is now known as the Coca-Cola Bowl, which is, kind of crazy, but hey, that's what happens, right? The only money that the country essentially gets is what's called tourism money. So if you have Russia versus Japan in Seattle, you're going to have a ton of Japan and Russian fans come into Seattle. It's going to boost the economy that way. That's pretty much how the country gains money. Some of the more interesting things is, some of these stadiums that were considered, I'm surprised that they weren't included in the final one. Big one is Michigan Stadium. I'm surprised it wasn't thrown in there. I'd love to see, a World Cup final in the Michigan Stadium. That'd be way cool to see. Soldier Field, just the history behind it. Some of the other ones that were cut was Rice-Eccles stadiums. One of the stadiums that claimed they had no interest at all of hosting was, mainly a lot of college stadiums, like the Darrell K. Royal, the Texas Memorial Stadium, Bryant-Denny Stadium in Alabama, Penn State's, Notre Dame, LaVell Edwards. Kind of surprised that a lot of those guys were saying no. And going back to the sponsorship, the official bid partners, that these are companies that are backing it, and so essentially they're paying money to FIFA also. For the United States 2022 World bid was, the Fox Soccer Channel, AT&T, American Airlines, Walt Disney, Chevron, Subway, Kohl's. So that was money that was being spent to help the United States get this bid, which was in turn kind of given to FIFA, because you also have to pay for the bidding process. So what happened is they turned around and they focused everything towards the 2022, because at the time, the 2022 World Cup bid only had Qatar, South Korea, Japan, Australia. Indonesia had a bid at the time, but they decided to back out. And Mexico. was another one that wanted to host, and they decided to back out also. So essentially it comes down to those few schools. I mean, those few countries that were working to get this all set up for the United States. And so looking at it, there was a lot of interest, especially by the, a lot of famous people. I remember at the time when they were doing it, what they turned around to do is they call President Obama called up and talked about how much that him as the country's leader supported the United States getting this bid, mainly because of the boost it could do to the economy. Essentially was the pushing point behind it, and which, FIFA coming in actually does some great good for soccer as a whole, because people's going to be watching it, especially if it's on your own home soil and you have the chance to go watch like a Brazil versus a Sweden, or an Italy versus a France, or some big time countries, right? It's going to be great for the stadium as a whole. The stadiums, it's going to be great for the economy. It's going to be great for the soccer fans, because they're going to be there to watch all of these. The world's best is here to play on our soil. When we were awarded the 1994 World Cup bid, it was told to us that part of the agreement for it to come in is the United States had to promise to establish a Division I soccer league. At the time, they selected the Major League Professional Soccer to be that Division I professional soccer league. Right after the World Cup, MLS was officially formed and became that Division I soccer. A year after that, 10 teams started playing in 1996, and they were able to, they had those big marquee players that people saw play 2 years ago, and now they're playing in the MLS. Alexi Lalas was one of them, which was, it's kind of cool. You see Alexi Lalas, I mean, notorious for what he was, his hairstyle and everything. I mean, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's really funny to see what Alexi looked like back playing in the World Cup. But then people turned around and were starting to, these are players they recognize. It wasn't a new sport starting without guys they didn't know about. The only thing that kind of I hate about MLS is they decided to change the rules to make it a more Americanized. They went straight to shootouts to resolve tie games. Instead of counting upward, so the clock starts at 0 and counts up to 45, and then starts at 45 and counts up to 90, they would start at 45 and count downward. In return, they realized that they were kind of the traditional soccer fans. They alienated them, and they weren't drawn in as many new American fans, and so they did away with a lot of the stuff. Kind of went back to the more modern, rules that everybody else follows. Then they turned around, and in the 1998 World Cup, the United States men's national team was made up mostly of MLS players, and it finished last place at the World Cup in their group. What happened after that was there was a lot of doubt on MLS on if this can happen. I mean, during their first 5 years, it was estimated that they lost about $250 million. And from 1996 to 2004, so in an 8-year span, they figured they lost more than $350 million. So, they kind of need something. And lucky for them, in 2002, the World Cup, in which the United States, they made the quarterfinals. I mean, nobody expected them to pull it off, and next thing you know, the United States is sitting in the quarterfinals of the 2002 World Cup. That year, the MLS Cup drew 61,000 people. After that, FIFA turned around and, MLS turned around, went to more standardized rules, and did some more, transitions. They were able to get some of their well-known stars transferred to Europe, and so people are now looking at MLS. And so, the World Cup created the MLS for us, and when MLS was in a bad spot, the World Cup was once again there to help the MLS because of what the United States did in it. Now, if MLS can be healthy and be great and, playing at a high level, getting people looking at them, and they turn around and get a World Cup bid, it's only going to make this sport explode inside here. It's not going to give them, a punch in the arm, an injection to tell them, here you go, you guys can keep playing, even though you're losing money. It's going to turn into, you have all these fans coming in, here's a World Cup bid. Now soccer, soccer's never going to be that top sport in the United States. It's always going to be football. After that, it's arguably probably basketball and then baseball. But soccer has that chance to become that fourth sport. They're fighting with, hockey. And I'm not a big baseball fan, but in my opinion, baseball is kind of losing its luster. It's for, just like soccer, it's for a certain type of fan. And depending on what an explosion could do for soccer, this, it could essentially, not saying it would in like 2022 or something like that. What would happen is, soccer could arguably be knocking on the door of that number 3 sport. Do I think they ever make it to the top 2? No, but I think, with the decline of not so many people being involved in baseball anymore, that could be what happens. And you look at the part where they brought in the designated player rule. Now they're bringing in big stars. David Beckham, Blanco, Juan Pablo Angel. They're able to bring in Henry, Dempsey, Defoe, Michael Bradley. Even looking ahead at the teams that are coming in, you have big-time players coming into play, and so it's kind of fun to watch the sport grow like that because of what the World Cup did. So what happens inside the bid process, though, is they turn around and they take these members and they go in and they vote. And what happens is, in each round, a majority of 12 votes is needed. If no bid receives 12 votes, the bid with the least amount of votes is eliminated. So if in the first round you get 12 or more votes, you win no matter what. If not, whoever had the least amount gets kicked out. After the first round, Qatar got 11 out of 12 votes. So Australia was kicked out. The next round after that, they got 10. So Japan was kicked out. After that, they got 11. So South Korea was kicked out. And it came down to Qatar and the United States. What happened after that is Qatar gets 14 votes, USA gets 8. And so everybody's like, there's this huge thing. The United States can't believe that they lost this bid. What comes out soon after, you know, a couple of years after, but it's relatively soon, is that 2 of the committee members were reported to be given $1.5 million in exchange for their votes for Qatar. And, you know, there's been leaked emails from FIFA's General Secretary who suggests that Qatar bought the rights to host the 2022 FIFA World Cup. That it used its financial muscle to, you know, essentially get the bid. And the crazy thing about it is Qatar is a very heavy oil-rich country, so they have the money that they can do. You know, it comes out later that there's actually a 3rd member who claims that Qatar paid them to do it, to vote that way. So Qatar is actually awarded the bid, which is kind of, they become the first Arab country to host it. It's, you know, a giant shock and everything like that. People can't believe it. The crazy thing about it is, in the span of things, they brought forth saying that they would have 12 stadiums. Right now, out of the 12 stadiums, only 3 of them are built, and they're right now being expanded to hold more people, some of them being expanded to hold double. And so there's all these, there's still, you know, 9 stadiums that has to be built. Over the course of things, there's been more controversies. I mean, you've had the allegations of bribery, which it's been known that up to 3 for sure, I've heard rumors of 4, have been paid $1.5 million to swing their votes. There's the deal with weather. During the time that they want to play this game, the temperature can reach up to 122 degrees. What they're talking about doing, I mean, and they did it at the last World Cup, and it kind of, I mean, it was alright, but it kind of drugged the game down a little bit, is they would do water drinks. I mean, and they're looking at different things on how to keep everybody cool and stuff like that, setting up misting stations, and but Qatar's not guaranteeing it's going to work. And so there's a chance that, you know, your team could be playing in 122 degree weather and you're sitting in the fans watching it. There's deals with alcohol where to get alcohol you have to show your passport so they can report it, and so therefore at games you'd have to show, you know, your passport. But there are talks about setting up, you know, stations for alcohol sale and stuff like that. And you know, in Brazil, what it was called the Budweiser bill. What it is Budweiser is a huge sponsor of FIFA. And to protect the fans, Brazil passed a law saying that there would be no alcohol served in a soccer stadium. Because of the muscle power that FIFA has, Brazil passed a law to allow alcohol inside the game. So, I mean, they have the power to do things like this. I mean, it's kind of FIFA's thing that they will muscle you out of the way to get what they want. There's allegations of slave labor where, you know, one report I heard is that people from Nepal and areas like that, which are showing up because they see work, and what they're not being told is, you know, when they show up, they have to give their worker their passport, and you can't leave unless your boss gives you approval. So essentially, you're a slave. Your boss denies you your passport or your worker ID, and you are essentially trapped there. If you try to escape and you're not caught, and if you're caught and you don't have your papers with you because your boss has them, now you're arrested. You are essentially a slave there. And because of the heat and the way conditions are set up, they're estimating that before Qatar even hosts the World Cup, that there could be 4,000 workers killed. Human rights groups have actually come forward asking FIFA to intervene. Care about the country, that are killing people to get it done. One of the crazy things that has come through is the country of Israel and Qatar. They don't really like each other. And there has been talks that Qatar, they've come out and said that they'll let Israel play even though they don't recognize Israel as a country. They could turn around and refuse to allow Israel to even participate. It's just how it is. So they have all this going on, and Qatar, and FIFA is looking at this as a huge sum of money that could be coming in. You got to remember that FIFA, as a non-profit organization, does not pay any taxes at any level. It was figured that if they paid taxes, that Brazil would have made $250 million off of FIFA to go towards their country. With the unrest that's going on inside Brazil, where they were upset that they were building stadiums because of how poor players were. They're building stadiums, these big, huge stadiums, beautiful stadiums to have soccer be played in, and a kid down the street has to live inside, a one-room shack with his mom and his dad and his 4 brothers. That's $250 million that FIFA, as soon as the World Cup was over, picked up and walked out with, that Brazil could have been using. Now, the great thing that has come out is there's been a report that, going back, the president of FIFA has stated that, like I said, this is the first Arabic World Cup. And that he said that the Arabic world deserves a World Cup. And that they deserve to host it. I have no issues with that. The only issue I have with it is how they were awarded it. There was a report that did come out that stated that the United States needed to put together a bid team, put their bid team back together, and figure out if they could host the 2022 FIFA World Cup, because there was talks because of the slavery issues, because of the heat issues, because of the allegations of bribery and different things like that, that they turn around and that FIFA is considering pulling the World Cup away from Qatar and award it to the United States, which is great for the United States. That allows them, to build upon the MLS and everything like that. The only thing with it is the United States needs to know this soon, because in 2026 is another World Cup. And so the United States needs to know soon what's going to go on, because there is the potential that the United States would like to host that World Cup. And as it sits right now, Canada has put in a bid, Mexico has put in a bid, Colombia has put in a bid, Morocco is talking about putting in a bid, and then the United States needs to decide if they want to do that. And then looking at 2030, from the sounds of it, United States doesn't sound like they're going to throw in a bid. From the sounds of it, that's more or less going to be a South American or an Asian one. So, I mean, there's hope that, you know, justice will be served, so to say. The United States will get the 2022 in the right mind frame of everything. It should go to the United States. Some of those guys that have come out and admitted to being bribed have admitted that they were going to vote for the United States. And so it'd be nice to see the United States host another World Cup. It would do wonders for the sport. I know it would do wonders for, you know, the youth, just to be able to see some of their heroes, or see, you know, a Brazil play, or see an Italy play, in Australia. Somebody like that to come in, and what it does to MLS, to the country, to this entire sport as a whole within the United States. It'd be great, and I'd love to see that happen. I know as things go on, things are going to change, and hopefully going forward we're able to see the sport grow off of something like that. But I hope that FIFA makes the right decision. If Qatar is the right decision, then leave it in Qatar. Punish those that were involved with it. If going to the United States is the right answer, award it to the United States. I know, Qatar is dealing with slavery issues and bribery issues, heat issues, but if you have the chance to allow the soccer world to grow into a country that many don't feel that can, become that number 3 sport or even that number 4 sport, I think you gotta take that risk, take that chance, and just run with it. I mean, not only that, in the '94 games, we saw some great players. They turned around '96 and brought a lot of those players in. Imagine 2022, you might be able to pull in a lot of those players to come play in the MLS the next year or the year after that. And so, moving forward, I hope the United States is awarded the 2022. I think it's best for them to get the 2022. By then, the league will have grown. Most, if not all, of the teams should be playing in soccer-specific stadiums. So, I mean, we won't be able to see them inside there. In my opinion, I think they need to be played in soccer-specific stadiums, only because I like the feel that it brings. It's not as big. It's compact. That's why I love going to Real Salt Lake games. You can hear the chants. You can hear everything. I love hearing that and seeing all that. And so, going forward, I hope we're able to pull that off. I mean, it's going to be tough too. I mean, looking forward to future stadiums before even the 2022 stadium gets here. You're looking at Orlando having a stadium. San Jose is going to get their own stadium, so that's another team that won't be playing on in a non-specific soccer-specific stadium. New York will have theirs open by then. Let's see, I already said Orlando. Atlanta will probably have their stadium open by then. So, I mean, and maybe one day, if soccer is able to grow to what many like me hope it turns into, maybe Rio Tinto in the future is, turned into maybe expanded, or maybe they find somewhere else and they build some of a Invesco Field or a Rose Bowl or something like that. Something that can hold 70,000 fans. If they can get the market around here. I mean, if you can, it's one of those, if you build it, they will come. But it's not that way in soccer, because you got to have that sitting there. And so I hope we're able to go forward and build it up that way. And so, anyways, I didn't get into what I wanted to, and I told you guys I would, about expansion talk. Promise I will get into that next week, only because the expansion draft is something that's on the back of the minds of everybody as they watch their teams this week. And clubs are going to have to be making decisions on who to keep and who not to keep, who to risk to lose. And so next week I promise to cover into that. But for now, remember to send your questions to me on Twitter at 24Brad or at touchline_TBS. And I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.